Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last few years, a few different styles, but I think it is most definitely fair to say that this brewery are best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now, the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Systembolaget here in Sweden. It's meant to be very nice, and it is a style that I know these guys can do very, very well. And it's been about 2 years, actually, since I last reviewed a beer from this brewery, apparently, which I did not realise until I was getting prepped for this one. So, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Cheltenham, which is in Gloucestershire in the southwest of England, a bit to the kind of northeast of Bristol of course, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Deya Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Interference. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this is another New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the Tillfälligt temporary assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden at the beginning of June 2023, and this one is a very, very highly rated beer. We've had some really nice New England doubles from Deya before, but this one seems to be particularly highly rated. It had a 4.2 actually when I looked at it on Untappd earlier on, and it does seem to be fairly fresh. I think this one was canned about a month ago, and for coming over here to Sweden, that is pretty damn good. But like I said, very cool to return to Deya for the first time in a bit over 2 years if I'm not mistaken, so let's see what this one has in store for us. As always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Deya Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So yeah, just go in there, use the search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, of course, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the English playlist along with a number of other things, and you can check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. But yeah, let's go on to my notes, and I'll tell you a little bit again about Deya Brewing Company then. So, as I've mentioned to you already, Deya Brewing Company are based in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, and it was founded back in 2015 by Theo Frame. So he was introduced to craft beer by his dad, who brought back some beers from trips to the US, and then after tasting all these beers and getting associated with the different styles, Theo decided that he wanted to start brewing beers for himself, and he got some work experience at Freakston's Brewery before enrolling at Heriot-Watt University in the brewing programme in Edinburgh. And after this, he worked for a short while at 5 Points Brewing in Hackney in London, and then he went over to work for Odell's Brewery in Colorado in the US, who were actually one of the first Colorado breweries I believe I tried here on the channel. But after this, or having gathered all this experience, he decided that he wanted to start up his own brewery, and initially he was operating as a gypsy brewery with a few breweries in the Cheltenham area. But he later bought a brew kit from Harbour Brewing down in Cornwall and secured a premises which they opened up in 2016. But over the years they've continually expanded their brewing capacity, and then in 2019 they moved into a larger unit right next to where they were originally based, and they have a custom built 40 hectolitre 4-vessel brew house there, along with a 2,000 square foot tap room and a large outdoor area which they open up for seating in the summer. But the original unit is now used as a barrel aging area, and it's also where they produce their sour beers as well, and they've got a little bar there that you can go and sit in as well. It's quite interesting. If you want to see what it's like, you can go and check out my out and about video there that I filmed with Harry from Blue Nose Beer Reviews. It was quite fun to go and visit Deya. But the brewery itself is named after a village in Mallorca, and as of June 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 325 different kinds of beer, and the current head brewer is Gareth Moore. So yeah, over the years these guys have become well known for their New England hazy IPAs, and that's obviously, if you do well with this style, you're going to get a big name for yourself. But they also do some very nice lagers actually, and we tried a few different styles when we were up at Deya. I think we tried a porter and an imperial stout, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Deya have been diversifying a little bit and doing different things in recent times, but doing them very well. But like I say, Deya became well known because of how good their New England hazy IPAs were. But yeah, I should say. But that is everything I can really tell you about Deya Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd, and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. Before we open it up though, I'll let you have a little look at the artwork on this one there. You can see the Deya crocodile kind of doing his thing. So yeah, that is pretty cool. You can see plain silver top on the can there. I should point out as well, this one is a half litre. Deya always sell their beers in half-litre cans, which is good. But yeah, I have to say, I quite like this one. They're describing this one as a big, sticky double IPA. Strata, Mosaic and Citra bring a big waft of high-grade dank with some ripe tropical fruit peeking through. So yeah, we've got 3 hops in this one, Strata, Mosaic and Citra. We know all of these quite well. All of them American, all of them about 14% alpha acid, I believe. But Strata might be a little bit more. Something in my head says it might be 16. But Strata, we know, gives you that lovely kind of big pink grapefruity character. Mosaic is going to give you a nice kind of juicy tangerine note, and in a New England IPA, Citra is going to give you quite a little bit of soft mango, but with a wee bit of stronger grapefruit behind it, and some kind of lemony, limey characters as well. Like we said, 8% New England double IPA. This one, if memory serves me correctly, I paid 65 Swedish kronor for this. So that is about 65 Swedish kronor is about €6.50, £6 sterling, somewhere in the region like $7 American, something like that. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what we have. This is Interference, an 8% New England double IPA from Deya Brewing Company in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, England. So let's do this. Now I have to say, I was quite impressed with that when I checked the can-on date on the bottom. It was canned just about a month ago, and that's, you know, for an import beer coming into Sweden, I think that's pretty damn good, because Systembolaget are notoriously slow for getting things on the shelf actually. But anyway, so as you can see, this beer's poured pretty much as you would expect of a New England double IPA. So you can see we've got a lovely finger of a frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head. I don't know if you could describe that as perfect white, but it's got a mix of bubbles there. There's some medium sized bubbles at the bottom, a few foamier things going further up, and some bigger bubbles in there. But yeah, it looks good. In terms of the colour of this beer, you've got a lovely kind of bright yellow mango juice type colour to this one. So 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there. But overall, it does look very, very nice. Yeah, it does look pretty good, this one. So the yellow colour in this one, as I say, it looks a little bit like a kind of mango juice. I always like comparing the colours in New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that's just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrelation that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour of the beer as well, but you don't often have to care about that with New England hazy IPAs. In terms of the level of haze from this one, it's kind of soupy and gloopy, but not too soupy and gloopy. But the haze in New England IPAs depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and recipe to recipe, of course. But this one does look pretty nice, I have to say. There's nothing really untoward about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, I think that's all we really need to say about this one, to be honest. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the appearance, and we'll have a wee look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. Let's do this. yeah, aroma-wise, this is pretty damn nice, I have to say. Yeah. So, I'm going to say straight away, this is quite a big floral, wheaty leaning, and very juicy New England double IPA, this one. The thing is, I always remember the Deya beers being a little bit more kind of farmhousey in their character, to be honest with you. And as I've said in many reviews before, for me there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the yeasty and malty character in New England IPAs. So you've got the more farmhousey, yeasty side of things and the rye-leaning, grainy side of it. Those two are a little bit more common in American brewed New Englands, but then you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and then also the sweeter side of things. And that's really, those 4 are what you really need to concentrate on when it comes to the European brewed New England IPAs. But for me, this one has a little bit of everything to it. It smells very, very well rounded. And it smells pretty damn fresh, actually, which is good. You want these English beers to be fresh when they make it here. So, let's just break the aroma of this beer down properly and describe it for you in depth, as we always do. So the backbone of this beer, absolutely, you've got a lovely little bit of that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust. There's a little bit of a kind of woodiness in there as well, but that's very, very minimal. And the bread crust really is quite fresh. Think of like a fresh kind of hedgehog roll when it comes to this one. So yeah, that's very, very nice with this beer. On top of that, there's a little bit of a Jacob's cream crackery note for sure. So yeah, fresh bread crust, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. Then above that, you're getting all the nice kind of white bready goodness coming out of this one. So yeah, you can smell that fluffy, fresh white bread in there. Then you get the wheat above that. You can smell the wheat kind of smoothening the bread out and also densifying a little bit, but in the back of the nose you absolutely get a little bit of the kind of more wheaty, bitey character that you would expect. Oh, I just noticed on the can there, it actually says spelt, and spelt is a very, very old kind of German wheat. I think it's one of the oldest types of wheat grains in the world, actually, if I remember correctly. So yeah, that would explain this, because it does have, you know, when you think about the wheat in this one, it's very, very smooth, but at the same time it's a little bit bitey, and you do almost just get a little tiny hint of kind of wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one. So that would make sense if there's spelt malt in there. But yeah, above that, above all of that, you're getting some of the oaty character out of this one. And the oats are interesting because there is a little bit of creaminess in there, but it's also just a little touch more. It's got a little bit of a more dry character to it as well. So as I've said in many New England reviews before, the way that the oats behave can often be used as a good indicator of how fresh your beer is. So the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. It's just kind of how it goes. So this beer does have a little bit of dryness to it because it's at the 4 or 5 week old mark, I believe, but it's still got quite a lot of the creaminess to it. You know, you want to drink your New England IPAs within 6 weeks. The West Coast IPAs, of course, can last a little bit longer than that. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind. But this one still smells as if it's in very good condition. Lovely bit of creamy oat in there. Good little bit of a drier character as well. I'm getting a little touch of sweetness out of this one. There's a wee bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing going on with this beer, and you would often, you know, to be honest, you would expect that from a New England hazy at 8% ABV. But Deya, say, are one of the ones that are a bit less sweet. These beers tend to be a little bit more yeasty and farmhousey. But I think the aroma and the malty side of things goes together rather well with this one. And the more that I smell it, the more kind of wheat I get out of this one. You get more of the spelt out of this. I'm quite pleased with myself that I picked that up in the aroma before I really looked at the can and saw that there was spelt in this one. I was saying, yeah, it was a wheaty leaning beer. So glad that my nose is distinguishing well enough between oats and wheat and barley. But yeah, for me, nice malt base this one. I'm curious to see whether this beer is actually going to be a little bit more kind of bitey and stuff in the actual aroma, or flavour rather, I should say. But yeah, let's move on to the hoppy side of things then. I think we've covered everything that we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of this beer. For me then, I would say that there is a little bit of yeah, I would say that there's a little bit of, there's quite a bit, the green character in this one really leans toward the more floral side of things. So there's a little touch of earthiness to this one for sure, which is most likely to come from the mosaic, but then the green component is very bright, big and floral. You'd expect that from all these hops being like 14% alpha acid plus and American, and you've got quite a wet grassy character to this one, but at the same time the wetness that you get from the grassy notes is really quite zesty actually, so there's quite a lot going on in this one from that perspective. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together from that, in that sense, I think is very, very nice, and it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like that with this one for sure. So on the on the fruity side, on the hoppy side of things, then with the green component, one thing we do need to mention is about the different methods of hopping that you can use. So if we take a 90-minute wort boil as our model, if you add the hops within the first hour of the wort boil, that's early addition hopping. That gives you mainly bitterness in the flavour and a deeper, danker aroma. You've got late addition hopping, which is the last half hour of the wort boil, and then that gives you quite a bright floral and grassy aroma, but it also gives you a little bit more of it gives you a brighter kind of flavour, so it doesn't give you the deep and dank characters. And then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, that gives you all flavour and aroma, and it will give you quite a bright green component as well. So New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, whereas West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they have that more bitter flavour and the deeper, danker aroma. And you can often tell with the brighter green components that there's late addition and dry hopping dominating in the beer. So that's quite obvious with this one, I would say. So like I say, a nice wet, zesty, grassy character, and then you've got that kind of brighter floral aromaticity coming out of this one too. So yeah, on the fruity side of things then, this beer is kind of what you'd expect. You've got this really sharp kind of pink grapefruity note out of it, which is the strata, of course. The strata for me is always very distinctive. Like, I like to think that if I was given a beer blind, I could pick out strata quite easily, but it's just this big pink grapefruity, almost peachy type note that I always get from strata. So for me, that's forming the kind of back of the beer. But then beyond that, you can smell a little bit of the juicier mango and passion fruit from the citra, and then you have the big oily kind of limey you've got a little bit of an oily limey note in there. But for me, you do get a wee bit of the kind of tangerine note from the mosaic as well. For me, it's the strata is the most pungent of the three hops in this one, aroma wise. But yeah, the strata is the most pungent and the most noticeable. But then you also have a really nice you've also got a really nice kind of juicy mango-y type quality coming out of this one as well from the citra. But I think the mosaic takes a wee bit of a back seat, so I'm curious to see how this is going to translate in the actual flavour of the beer. So yeah, interesting aroma this one, I have to say, but I really want to try this one now. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy that aroma, but we'll taste this one now and see what it's all about. So this is the Interference, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Deya Brewing in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire in the southwest of England. Strata, citra and mosaic in this one. Let's do it. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that is pretty damn nice actually. Lovely. First impression of this one, very smooth and very kind of creamy New England IPA, this one actually. Yeah, I think this goes together really well. See if we can get the rest of this out and into the glass. There we go. This is good. But yeah, another really solid one from Deya. As I say, it's been a wee while since I mean, it's been a year since we tried some of their beers at the brewery, and it's been longer than that since I did a sit-down review, actually. I think I should have said that a bit more clearly earlier in the video. It's a year ago since I did the out and about video, and then, yeah, 2 years since I did a sit-down review of a Deya beer. So this one, they still have that kind of, they still have that sort of kind of farmhousey, yeasty sort of thing, which could well be down to both the yeast strain that they're using and the spelt in the beer, the use of that old German wheat. But then this one's a wee bit sweeter and stickier and more juicy and creamy than I remember some of them being as well. But yeah, this is a solid New England double, and it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah. Let's do as we always do then, just break this beer down and describe it for you a little bit more in depth. We'll start in the middle third of the palate as we always do. So, middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, it's got a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh, it's got a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust forming the backbone of the beer. They're further forward on that middle, third of the palate. You get a wee bit more of a kind of woody. You just get this little bit of woodiness coming out of the beer. Then above that, there's a bit of a kind of fresh Jacob's cream cracker type quality coming out of this beer. But then above everything else, you start to get the more dense, bready qualities coming out of this one, which I think are very, very nice. Yeah. So in terms of the in terms of the bready nature of this beer, so like I say, you've got that Jacob's cream cracker layer. Above that, you definitely get a little bit of a slightly sweet wholemeal brown bready layer. Then you've got the fluffy white bready character sitting on top of that, which is really nice. So yeah, you've got that fluffy white bready character in there, which is quite sweet in a sense, actually. I really do like how that goes together. So, yeah, lovely, fresh, fluffy, white bready character coming out of this one. It's kind of dense, but at the same time it's really quite smooth. And then above that, you've got a kind of smooth, wheaty character coming out of this one, which will be the spelt, of course, but it's smooth, but at the same time it's just got a little bit of kind of brown bready and dry character to it. So yeah, you've got all these layers in that middle third of your palate, which just build on top of each other and go together really nicely. So yeah, the wholemeal brown bread, the fluffier white bread in there, the smooth wheat, and the wheat, as I say, has a little bit of graininess to it as well. Yeah. It's the thing in this one, this beer, I don't think, it doesn't say oats on the, malt base in this one, on the ingredients on the can, which I think it would have to. But it's been sold over here, and I'm noticing that it also has Swedish on the label, so I'm guessing this is maybe a special batch that they've brewed to come over here to Sweden, which would make sense. But yeah, the way this one goes together is really pretty nice in that sense. But yeah, you don't really get one of the things with the oats in beer, so we said earlier, usually it can be an indicator. So what I said earlier doesn't really apply to this beer, but it doesn't have oats. But in the middle of the palate, you do still get a little bit of this kind of almost creamy character out of the beer, but the spelt really acts as a smoothing agent over the whole thing. So above the spelt layer, you do have just a little circle in the middle of your palate where it gives you this almost kind of creamy oaty type character, but you can tell from the flavour it's not oats. Yeah, the beer, this one really does give you just almost a little bit of that kind of oaty creaminess, but I think whatever it is that Deya do with their malt bases, I quite like it. And spelt's a really interesting thing to play with in like saisons and hefeweizens and stuff like this. But yeah, I do like how this one goes together for sure. On top of that kind of creamy layer, you've got a little circle in the middle of your palate where you've got a little circle in the middle of your palate there where you start to get some of the sweetness out of this beer. Where you've got the kind of Werther's, it has this sort of Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing to it. So you feel that in the middle of your palate, which is to be expected when this is a big 8%er. You are going to get a little bit of sweetness because of the alcohol content of this beer. But as you move further out from that one, you've got a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type character as well. So yeah, the way this beer goes together in that sense is really nice. The malty body, in this beer is really quite nice. So yeah, I like this one. I do like how this goes together in that sense. So again, a big thumbs up from me. In terms of the back third of your palate, then we'll move across there. So border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in this one, which is good. So yeah, lovely little bit of kind of bready build up in here. Then the base of that back third of your palate, you've got a wee bit more of you have got a little bit more of a kind of more grainy character to this one. So as I've always said, on the further back on the palate, you get more of the kind of bitter and dry flavours, whereas further forward you get the more sweet flavours. But what you often find in New England's is that you get similar flavours on the back third of the palate to the middle, but they just come out in different intensities. So yeah, the back third of the palate, you can feel the base has a little bit more of that, the bread crust is there, but it's a little bit drier, a little bit more grainy. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker above that, and then you've got the wholemeal brown bready layer, which feels a little bit taller and a little bit more airy, and then you have the white bready layer above that, which is more, which definitely gives you a little bit of a lighter, more airy type character as well. So you can feel those layers there, but above everything else, you can feel the spelt, the wheat, sitting on top of this one, and it gives you a little bit of bitiness and almost a little touch of spiciness there on that back third of your palate. But then above everything else, you've got some of the more yeasty character coming out of this beer, which is nice too. So let's just look at that yeastiness again, because I've always found this is one of the unique things, or one of the trademark things, I guess you could say, of the Deya Brewing beers. They've always just got a little bit more yeasty character to them, but it could well be the spelt. So above the wheaty layer, you've got a nice little bit of yeastiness in there. You've got a nice little bit of yeastiness coming out of this one. So it's the yeasty characters that come out of this one. It's kind of like it has a little bit of this more kind of farmhousey, brown bready type characters. There's a wee bit of kind of honeycomb and stuff in this one, but you've got a little bit of that. It's like a woody, brown, crackery, farmhousey bread there with a little bit of honeycomb wrapped around it. I really find that that goes together in this one quite well. So you can definitely feel that the you can absolutely feel that the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you come forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. So yeah, I really like how that goes together for sure. Big thumbs up from me. In terms of the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's got a little touch of herbal character, and as you push further forward toward the front corners of the tongue, you get a little bit more of a kind of oily floral aromaticity coming out of the beer, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, you can feel with this one. The green component, I would say, is actually quite oily and very, very smooth. But I really do like how that goes together. So yeah, a little touch of earthiness there, I would say probably from the mosaic, wee bit of herbal character, but then yeah, you can feel the oily green component coming out the further forward you go, particularly toward the front corners of your palate. Round the front curve of the tongue, you can feel the beer gets a little bit lighter, a little bit more grassy, but it's still kind of oily and more zesty, if you like. So yeah, the way that that goes together is nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah. So on the front third of your palate, then we'll go on to the fruity side of the beer. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a really nice, kind of mix of brown and white bready build up in there. But then the base of the front third of the palate, a little bit of bread crust again, wholemeal brown bread, and then a nice kind of smooth white bready character above that. Then you get that nice juicy, oily, fruity bubble coming out of this one, which is great. So yeah, the fruity juiciness that comes out of this beer, I think, is really very nice too. So for me, it's actually very well balanced. You know, I was getting the impression, I said the strata kind of dominated in the aroma of the beer, which it definitely did. But you can feel in the flavour it's a lot more balanced. So let's just have a wee look at that. At the back of that front third of your palate, you definitely get that kind of bright pink grapefruity character. But then as you move further forward, you can feel it mellows out to be more of a kind of passion fruity note. So the pink grapefruit is obviously going to come from the strata, but the passion fruit is going to come from the citra. And as you move further forward, you get quite an oily mango there. And again, that's the citra. But when you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's the light, juicy tangerine from the mosaic that comes out in this one, and you maybe just get a little tiny hint of like a lime behind the very front tip of your tongue, and that's also one of the characteristics of citra as well. So that goes together really nice. This one, the fruits it has got a nice juicy element to it. There's a wee bit of dryness there into the aftertaste, and you've also got a little bit of an oily character to it as well. But yeah, overall, very, very nicely balanced, this New England double, I have to say. So thumbs up to Deya. But I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour. We can round off this one with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. Oh well, my recycling bag just fell over. There you go. So yeah, let's look at the mouthfeel. So for me, the more that I drink of this one, the more I'm tempted to say it's one of the more oily New England doubles that I've had. So would absolutely say that. More of an oily New England double for sure. For me, it does, as I say, it does have a bit of creaminess to it. I describe this one as being toward the top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. Like I say, a mix of an oily, creamy sort of thing to it. The hoppy side of the beer, it's got a kind of 30 or 40 IBU type thing. And yeah, I think about 30 IBUs. It feels a little bit more bitter the further into the aftertaste, which is what makes me want to say 40, and that's kind of normal when it's a double IPA. You do want a little bit more bitterness. So yeah, 30 to 40 IBUs this one. The malt, like we said, it's a bit dry underneath, but very smooth in the middle, and it has a little bit of sweetness on top, so you get a wee bit of everything in there. Then the fruity character, it's got a little bit of citrusy pungency from the strata and from the lime and the citra, but then you've got the nice kind of juicy tangerine orange from the mosaic and the more tropical fruits as well. So it's a very well-rounded New England IPA, this one, and I like the little bit of dryness and kind of yeastiness and stuff that you get out of this one. So it's obviously a combination of the spelt and whatever yeast strain that they are using in the beer. But very, very nice, and I can see exactly why this one was so highly rated. So yeah, thumbs up to Deya once again, and like I said, cool to return to these guys for a sit-down review after what feels like a very long time. So yeah, this one was the Interference, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Deya Brewing Company in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire in the southwest of England. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Deya Brewing Company are as well. Check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. And I'm also going to clean up my recycling bag, which just fell over. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys later.